All right, I just finished watching Godzilla versus Kong, which is the fourth film in this new Godzilla franchise, I suppose. Or is it to be referred as MonsterVerse? I'm not quite certain. Now, a brief recap, I suppose. I don't believe I did any other videos on these movies before. And I'm too lazy to look up and see if I did. But of course, the initial Godzilla movie that they did, what was it, 2014? I liked that one. I thought it had a good enough of measuring out of the human characters to the real stars, which were the monsters, Godzilla, and I'm not familiar with the names of those that appeared in that first film, these bug-like whatever they were, who were busy going to get it on. And the soldiers burn up all their kids and stuff. All that. But it was, at the time, that was one of the two films, I believe, that Bryan Cranston went to after his amazing performance in Breaking Bad. And, the Godzilla one's the better of the two. The other one being the remake of Total Recall, which, jeez. So the original Total Recall is a very good film. But the second one, despite having superior effects and all that, was just not worth the trouble. But that's not really Cranston's fault. Here, he presents an interesting character, and you see it repeated later on in the Kong movie. About a guy who's broken and lost, and he stumbles into this great secret, and there's something going on. And of course, he's all right about it, but then he's dead. He dies, so it's kind of, oh, well, okay. He agreed to shoot some scenes, get a paycheck, and he's out of there. And then Kick-Ass, or the X-Men's Quicksilver, if you will, who is married to his sister, Elizabeth Olsen. Who is, of course, Scarlet Witch in the MCU. And so he's in the military, and he's kind of forced into this and discovers that his father's weird theories about the death of his mother is all true and everything. And for the most part, it works. I'm not a big fan of Godzilla films, and to this day, I think the original first one is the better one. Of the whole thing. I know it went on, and occasionally late at night I'd see one or two here and there, and all this other crazy stuff would happen, bunch of other characters and whatnot. And all that stuff. But hardcore Godzilla films would know more about that than I do, and for whatever reason, that's what you like, seeing these giant monsters destroying cities and fighting it out like the WWE. And that's what you get. And so the human stories, you're supposed to have these characters in here to relate to it, to craft the reality for the fantasy here, and which gives it a bit of a boost, and so I think that one it played out a little better. It's a little odd because on the way to this Godzilla versus Kong, I was hearing a lot of people say, no, King of the Monsters did better in that regard, and I don't agree. I think the first one did it better. But anyway, so it got it off to a good start, and it gave you this background story for the mysterious organization of Monarch, which is trying to understand these creatures, and says, oh, they're from the distant past, and they're the Titans, and so they're studying it, and they're the ones who are the go-to people to deal with this. So in the next film, we go to Skull Island for Kong, and, well, you don't get the actual story of King Kong. And then, of course, there's a very good reason for that, because King Kong always dies in his stories. Not like Godzilla, although the first movie, Godzilla died at the end of that one. But Godzilla got more of the series of films, and I don't know how many there's been, but, it's been a lot. And but Kong, there's been other movies, and there's been movies, where he came back to life and stuff like that, but it never was quite like with Godzilla. And so you would get a lot of remakes of King Kong, and of course, you know, the girl who's trying to be a star gets caught up and attacked by the natives on his island, and he falls in love with this human woman, climbs the Empire State Building and falls off and dies. Later on in the 70s remake, it was the World Trade Center, and can't do that today. And he falls and dies. And then there was this low-budget sequel to that one, and that's the one where they gave him a heart transplant or something. But anyway, Skull Island now is very different. You have this story, and the most interesting character, besides Kong himself, of course, is Samuel Jackson's character, who's bitter over the loss of the Vietnam War. This one jumps back in time. You get some inklings about Monarch here, and John Goodman, I guess, is playing, I don't know if the founder of it, but certainly it seems to be the leader at that point. And he's kind of similar to Cranston, and he hasn't suffered any great loss or anything, but he's, you know, he's pushing matters and calling in favors from a senator and all this stuff to get out there and go to this island because he thinks he'll find the answers he needs to the source of these titans and whatnot. And turns out he's right. It's a very important island. And but then he's dead. He gets killed by one of the skull-headed lizards, and that's the end of him. But John Goodman's a great actor, and he was good, but he's gone too soon. The other interesting and a good character is John C. Reilly, who plays a World War II pilot who got trapped on that island with a Japanese pilot. They were bitter enemies about to fight, and then they see Kong, and they're like, well, there's more important things than this, and all that. But his story is one of the more interesting ones. The other two MCU stars, Tim Hiddleston, who was Loki, and of course Brie Larson, who, well, after this movie later became Captain Marvel. They're just sort of there. They're not really all that interesting and whatnot. And Kong doesn't really have any interest in Brie at all. He saves her life, but yeah, it's more out of pity. So you get more of the details here where Kong, at least in that movie, seems to occupy the same position as Godzilla, and that there's these creatures coming from somewhere, and they're dangerous, and he's trying to stop them from coming, and all that stuff. And they unwittingly drop charges and whatnot, and he says that's going to wake them up to come and all this stuff, and he's very irritated. All that stuff. But it's a good romp of Kong action and fighting the weird skull lizards. And it's a different story altogether, so it's a new one and all that sort of thing. But I guess it's kind of on par with the Godzilla movie. So you had that, and then they did the King of the Monsters one, and that one, it just went. There was too many silly scenes and whatnot, trying to be funny. I guess thinking MCU's the way to go. I don't know, but it was too much, and it pushes you out of the story. The main head of Monarch that you saw in the first movie, he's there, and he sacrifices himself to save Godzilla, who gets badly beaten by his real nemesis. What is it, Ghidorah? And turns out he's an alien from outer space. So that's just sort of dropped in there, and well, okay, whatever. And this really awful story with the woman from the Conjuring movies, who's in league with eco-terrorists who just want to let the Titans run wild and end the domination of man on the planet because we're evil and destroying it and all that sort of stuff. And it's kind of crappy and all that, but yeah, whatever. Of course, the Stranger Things girl's there, but it's so. And, ultimately, the dad was right all along. So and unfortunately, what's her name? I guess she was called Emma, the mother. She dies at the end, and she deserved it because she did very, very awful things. Mothra shows up and, of course, sacrifices herself to save Godzilla. So long, Mothra. And Godzilla wins, rips off the head, one of the head, cooks the other heads, rips off one. Ghidorah. But there was a teaser. It survived, and Charles Dance, the leader of the eco-terrorists, buys this. So he's like, oh boy, maybe they'll clone Ghidorah or something. Well, now we come to Godzilla versus Kong. And we discover that since the Kong movie took place in the 70s, so now we're in contemporary times, and Monarch has been monitoring the Skull Island, and they've got him trapped in sort of a artificial environment, so to speak, to shield him from Godzilla, because they're two apex predators, and they can't have two alpha titans on the earth. Only Godzilla can be king, you know. So they're afraid he would come and kill Kong. But of course, there's a special girl. Yes, a little girl who's deaf and can speak in sign language, of course, and so can Kong. Yeah, no one ever noticed this. It's kind of weak. Movie. But so there it is, and Kong just wants to go home. But they another sinister corporate boss who he creates the Mecha Godzilla, the robot version of Godzilla that is also a nod to the old movies, and he's using it to have a weapon to get rid of all the Titans so that humanity won't have to worry about them anymore. But also because he wants to be in charge and all that. But it turns out he I guess bought the Ghidra head from the end of the last movie, from the eco-terrorists, I don't know, and is using that to make the robot work. I don't know. So of course, in the end, they had this guy who's hooked up to it so that he controls it, but his brain gets fried, because the spirit of Ghidra is still there in that skull, I guess, and overrides the controls of it, and wants to go kill Godzilla. So before you get to that, you have the big fights between Godzilla and Kong. Because when I heard about the plot, and the toys leaked out, and you saw that Mecha would be in there, and I thought, maybe Godzilla is not really Godzilla, and Mecha at first looks like Godzilla, and after he burns up or something, you see the metal body underneath. But no, that was Godzilla just destroying Pensacola, Florida at the opening, who apparently is aware that they're up to something with this robot, but I guess perhaps he was sensing, the mental waves or what have you of dead Ghidra in there, and was wanting to destroy it one more time. And so, meanwhile, so then you have parallel stories here. Stranger Things girl shows up again, and her and a friend join up with this conspiracy theorist podcaster who thinks there's something going on with this company called Apex, which is the one building the robot. And of course, he's absolutely right. Meanwhile, in the other parallel story is the special girl and her adoptive mother, and they team up with this former scientist from Monarch who was kind of disgraced because of his belief in a hollow earth theory. And turns out his theory is completely right. And so he's recruited by Apex to find a way in there. Apparently his brother had tried once before and died because the gravity inverts there, and it's all very weird. And to penetrate it into that world, you need some other means to do it, not just drop a plane in there or what have you, because you'd be crushed, which is what happened to his brother, apparently. So they developed these space-aged vehicles, which is, man, Apex has just got all kind of shit going on. And they fly down there, but they feel they need a Titan to guide them, so they lure Kong into this. But then they meet up with Godzilla, and you have a spectacular fight with battleships and aircraft carriers that all get destroyed. And but all the while, it's like Godzilla is just not caring about anybody. So really, Kong comes out looking a lot better here. He's certainly the more heroic. He cares about this little girl and all that stuff, and he gets irritated with the humans, but he's not to the point. But Godzilla is just get out of my way. And he's killing people all over the place. So yeah, I don't know about that. So they get there, and the scenes of the Hollow Earth is really cool looking, and it's all really neat stuff. And it gives these hints that there's this throne room for Kong and all that his family's from there and all that. And there's other creatures and whatnot there. There's some bird bats in his little chamber that he eventually finds. And they become a problem, but he takes care of it. and I guess that's where the skull lizards or the skull walkers or whatever they are come from. I'm assuming that's the point of origin for all of the Titans. But anyway, yet there's all these structures, and I don't know, did Kong's people build that? What? I mean, in the King of the Monsters, we find Godzilla goes back to this chamber. There's all these ancient ruins down there on the floor of the ocean, and he's like, wow, this must be like Atlantis or something. I don't know, but it looks like something man-made more, and but it has a buttload of radiation that he feeds on, and of course they have to jump start him with a nuke and all that. So I don't know, but he said a lot of it is just these hints at the story. I don't know if you get the full one. And so, but it is the interesting concept of Hollow Earth and all that sort of stuff. And but they get back, and you go from one point to another in the Earth, and you entered it. They entered it from Antarctica, and they end up in Hong Kong for the climax of the film. So, and meanwhile, Apex is also tunneled underground. Man, this corporation must be, I don't know, several zillions of dollars worth. And so they end up in Hong Kong, where they've got the Mecha Godzilla there, and of course but Kong finds this weapon from his ancient ancestors or what have you, and he makes use of it, and it absorbs the same radiation that powers Godzilla, and he's able to use that as a sort of a shield against Godzilla's atomic breath. And they find it out, and at some point, it looks like Kong's got the upper hand on him, and then he strikes back, and then it's kind of pretty much over for Kong. His shoulders busted and dislocated and all that stuff. But and they scream at each other, and Kong doesn't care if he dies. He's never gonna bow his head before Godzilla. Then Mecha shows up, who of course wants revenge on Godzilla, and they start fighting. Kong passes out, seemingly about to die of a heart attack. The little girl can sense it, and they use the Apex spaceship thing, whatever it is, or gravity ship, I don't know, to jumpstart his heart, and it works, yay! And he so little girl, special little girl, tells him that Godzilla's not the enemy. No, the nasty robot is. Now, I mean, she doesn't really know what's going on. They had their part of the story had no idea that there was some robot, gonna attack and join the whole fray. So, but again, look, it's big monsters fighting, and they do deliver. So some of this stuff, it's stupid, but you just let it go. And so, of course, Kong comes in, and Godzilla's pretty much about to die in this fight with the robot, and Kong comes in and saves him. And it's for a while there, I thought, okay, Kong's gonna die, and Godzilla, I was wrong about Kong. But instead, he doesn't die. He gets whipped around, but he ends up destroying the robot. And so Godzilla's like, well, I guess we're even. And so he just goes back to sea, and there you go. And so Kong gets back to, he doesn't go back to Skull Island, he goes back to the Hollow Earth, and everything's fine. Then there's no teaser. So I don't know if this is considered the final film of this series, maybe, I don't know. Boy, if they wanted to have the expanded universe treatment, they could have had a TV series called Monarch, but they wouldn't have the budget, to do the giant monster. So then they could just fight like, I don't know, vampires and werewolves. Yeah. But I don't know. A lot of things don't quite get resolved, but depending on how well this did for Warner Brothers and HBO Max, that's where I saw it. I'm sure there'll be another one, but it's kind of odd. They said, we got to let Kong follow us, and I thought they were going to find some pit on Skull Island that led to it, because that's where the skull lizards came from and stuff. They had to take him to Antarctica, so since a lot of creatures were coming up out of the ground there, it seems to stood to reason that Skull Island was a doorway to this Hollow Earth place, but well, it wasn't. So there you go. So anyway, yeah, I guess Kong and Godzilla decided to shake hands after after the fight, and that's where they leave it. So it's a fun film. Of course, it's, you know, you see the setup and stuff, and Kong hits Godzilla in the face. It's you know, it's good stuff. So yeah, if you're really into the giant monsters destroying everything, because by now I think Hong Kong was the only city they had left. I mean, after King of the Monsters, because there was far other you know, monsters. There was other titans running around and destroying stuff, and man, I don't know. There's not much left. Everyone seems fine. You know, they're going back their lives, and this guy's podcasting and stuff. What's her face was going to school, and I'm like, wait a minute. But anyway, it was a fun film. So there you go. My whole take on the entire franchise, all in one video of the Godzilla and Kong series, if you will. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness, so many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.